Hello and welcome to the Last Place Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Ryan. I am here with my co-host Ethan, and we are here to talk rookies, specifically
We're going to review them.
quarterbacks, quarterbacks and wide receivers. So we are going through our rookies from last year to see how they did, how they stacked up against how we thought they were going to do this year. And this will be referencing our big board and our tier lists from 2023, the offseason of 2023. So we're going to be just stacking them up and seeing who reached the level that we thought they would, and who fell and just did not do well this year. And there's quite a few of them.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go ahead and go into this. QBs, quarterbacks this year. Who were our top, or who was our top one, our tier one this year, or what we thought was a tier one at the beginning of the season last year. Ethan, name him.
It was one Bryce Young.
Yep, we uh, he made it up to 23, QB 23 this year,
Which
and
isn't horrible.
it's not
The
horrible,
team that he
but it was very, very disappointing. For the number one overall draft pick. Obviously, he doesn't really have a good team around him, but he needs playmakers on that offense. And it could be a couple of years before they actually get the amount of playmakers that he needed. And I was just amazed by this one stat, because I kind of, did a little background on him and whatnot before the episode. But 8 out of 16 games that he played in this year did not score a single touchdown at all. So half the time he was not even scoring a touchdown.
I mean, for being QB 23, that's not bad.
That's not bad,
I
but
mean, that's not a
it
good
was
stat,
not good. Yeah, it's not
but
good.
you can see that the potential's there.
Yeah, the
He
potential's
balled
there,
out.
and that's where building that team around him is really going to matter.
Yeah, free agency is going to be big for him.
Very big, very
But
big.
after that, we have our next quarterback who was in tier
Yeah,
two. Big shame on us.
big shame, dude.
But
Yeah,
CJ QB 11.
yeah, yeah. CJ Stroud, I'm actually very happily surprised by it.
Oh yeah,
Going to Houston, obviously, I did not think a lot of Houston last year. I didn't think they had the tools in
I
place
liked
to
him.
be
I
to
was a Houston
have
fan
any
going in. I
success.
just didn't want to get my hopes up.
See, but I mean, I just thought that there wasn't a whole lot of talent at QB for them, or at wide receiver for them to succeed.
I'm sorry, Tank Dell, and
I mean, this was last year, so Nico Collins hadn't emerged, as the wide receiver one that I thought he was 2 years ago. I thought he would end up becoming something. And I mean he did, but I didn't see CJ Stroud turning him into that. So, and to see Tank Dell come out as a top wide receiver candidate and have their run game surprisingly do well for what they had. I mean, Dameon Pierce kind of trailed off at the end of the year, but it wasn't horrible. Their team was actually pretty good, and I think that was due to CJ Stroud. I really do think so. So I'm very happily surprised. I would consider him like a tier one this year, but
oh, for sure,
um, let's go on to our next one,
Anthony
Anthony
Richardson.
Richardson from Indianapolis.
Honestly, I think
What
we
did you
did a
think of
good
him?
job on him in tier two in terms of how things ended up shaping out. I
Yeah,
mean, next year I see him as a tier one QB, but in terms of where we have him
yeah,
and what he showed us, I think he's gonna improve a lot. And I really like him going
yeah.
into next year, especially with Pittman, man.
And
Like
it's yeah,
him and Pittman and having JT back and healthy,
playing
that's
Josh
huge.
Downs there.
That's looking.
But I mean, Pittman could potentially be a free agent this year,
He's
so
not
they've got
going
to
to be.
lock him.
I'm gonna go ahead
I
and
know
tell you right
they've
now,
got
he's
to
not.
lock him down.
There's no way.
Yeah, I understand that, but the team could surprise us. But I am, I mean, with what he did this year in just a small sample size, I'm it's hard to judge what he did and stretch it throughout the year. So with just a small sample size, it's really hard to see what he's going to do next year, especially because he really relied on his legs and on scoring touchdowns in the run game with his scores, at least fantasy wise. So I I mean with JT back in the mix, because remember he was out the first couple of games this year. So with JT back in the mix, how is his running ability going to mix in with everything? And I'm talking about Anthony Richardson
Hey, that's a
running
next
ahead
year
of him.
problem.
Yeah, that's a next year problem, but I'm I don't know. I'm interested to see it. So our next one, well, I actually don't think we have any. We
No,
don't have
our last
any
one was
other tier twos. So it was
yeah.
just those
It's
two.
just Will Levis left at tier 3.
Yeah, yep. Will Levis, and he was
I think that's a good.
surprisingly underwhelming.
He had a big performance to start, and then
Yeah,
under.
one great game, and that's it.
But it's against the
Literally.
Falcons, so does it really count?
I mean, they had a decent defense, but I
Yeah,
mean, he was just hot. I mean, that's it. Like he was
yeah.
on a roll. He had the swagger. So, um,
And then he lost his
yeah,
girl.
I'm not. I don't know about Will Levis. I really don't. That's just a big question mark for me going into this upcoming season.
Yeah,
So this he's a wait and see for me. I'm not entirely confident in his ability.
fair enough.
Um,
Moving on
let's
to wide
go
receiver.
ahead and move on to wide receiver. And tier one, I think we were wrong for
Oh
the
yeah,
most part.
big time. JSN,
When it
not even
comes
close.
to JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba, I think he's a high tier three right now,
I think we
maybe
were
even
hoping
lower
he was going to
two.
replace Lockett, and that just didn't happen. So if
Yeah,
Lockett ends up leaving in free agency, I think that can actually hold as him staying in tier 1 from this rookie class. But
yeah,
it's
and
dependent on
yeah, and with
Lockett.
a crowded wide receiving room, I really do think
Well, but
it's
just
gonna
him and
take.
DK,
Yeah,
I like. But
I mean he did produce. I've got to give him that. He did produce this year, but until Lockett either retires or
mhm,
gets injured, I don't think we're gonna see a lot of Jackson Smith and Jigba.
yeah,
So
fair
I
enough.
think we were wrong in putting him in tier one. Um, so let's go ahead and move on to tier two.
Zay, which
This one
that
I
was
think we were right on.
yeah. I think we were right to have Zay.
Hmm.
Other than having CJ in this tier, having Zay at the top of tier 2, I
Yeah,
think was a good call for
yeah,
us.
yep,
I mean, especially down the stretch for fantasy playoffs, Zay was huge.
yeah, yeah. Zay Flowers ended up doing a really good job near the playoffs. So I think I really think he had a good season. I'm just questioning with Mandrews coming back and being healthy and all of that. Could we see him regress a little bit? And that's always the question when one of your stars comes back
Yeah, I mean that's just the
and the
guessing game you
replacement.
play every year. Who
Yeah, and that's
replaces
that. It is.
progress?
That's my that is literally my only concern. I do think he's going to be uh, gaining a little more chemistry with Lamar, and I think they'll get a little more in sync. But that's my only worry
Yeah,
is Mandrew's coming back this season. So
yeah, it's valid.
uh,
It's valid fear.
yeah. So moving on to our next one, which
I don't feel good about this one. Me
I
per
don't about Jordan.
Nope. He's
Okay,
my
negative
sophomore
or
slump.
positive?
He's my sophomore slump next year.
Okay. All right. Jordan Addison is who we're talking about, guys. So he is the newest addition to the Vikings wide receiving core. Um, I mean, he did well this year. He ended wide receiver 23.
which is really
Um,
good for a rookie.
it's really good for a rookie, and he did a majority of his production at the beginning of the season with Cousins in and JJ in. And as soon as Cousins got injured, production dropped like a rock. Like he was the fantasy number one wide receiver for rookies up to I think it was like week 7, week 8,
Yeah, something like that.
and then he just production just dropped off for him. He
And then he
could
went
not
back
produce
up.
enough.
He did go
I mean,
back.
he went back up for maybe 2, 3 weeks, and that's it.
The only
So
week
it
that
was
I needed
hard.
to be up.
Yeah, yeah. But so it was a little difficult, to see him as a high tier two. I had a lot of hope. I think he's a little lower. I think he's a low tier two still,
Yeah.
but uh, he's on the
He's my
verge of
sophomore
being
slump. And
a top
especially
three.
if Kirk might leave the Vikings.
If
Yeah.
Kirk leaves, he is definite like tier three bottom of tier three
Yeah.
because I
For
think
for
Kirk
this
loved
rookie.
Kirk loved him
For
to
this rookie.
stretch the field. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jordan Addison, I have hope if Cousins stays. If not, I'm struggling to see him as a viable fantasy option. Um, this one we were absolutely dead wrong about. This
Yeah.
next one,
Quentin Johnson.
Quentin Johnston, absolute dumpster fire. Um,
What a
I
buffoon.
was, yeah, I know, and imagine being the one that actually drafted
It,
him.
Ryan, that's embarrassing, dude. I'm not gonna lie to
I
you.
know, I know. Wide receiver
Sometimes you're right.
74,
Sometimes you're
and
wrong.
sometimes you're the champ. That's right.
And
No,
sometimes
but
you got Quentin Johnston, wide receiver
yeah,
74 in the
for
first
real.
round.
For real though. For real. It was bad. It was bad. That is what
But
my biggest regret. I could have gotten CJ Stroud with him.
but
Ah,
a change is coming to the Chargers
a change is coming.
in the
But
form of the Harbaugh.
but the thing I struggle with um is last year with every other wide receiver on the Chargers missing extended time. He was the only starting wide receiver through the entire year. I think he missed one game.
And couldn't get it together.
And he couldn't get it together.
Yep.
I mean, he had plenty of playing time.
Yep.
Like I'm talking 60% plus, 65% plus on his snap count and couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
That's hard for me to
Yeah. No,
swallow.
he's
Honestly,
garbage. I
like
don't want to
that's
waste any more time talking about him. Go ahead and
yeah.
drop him or leave him on your taxi squad if you have that
He's
available.
gonna he's gonna sit on my taxi
If you
squad
have a
through
taxi
this
squad,
year.
you might as
Through
well
this
stay for a
year.
little longer.
If
But
he if he does anything this year, I'll be happy.
yeah,
But if he doesn't do anything this year, I'm probably going to dump him at the end of this
wrong.
upcoming season.
Yep. Big
So,
drop candidate.
yeah, big
Up
drop
next,
candidate.
another drop
Jalen,
candidate.
Jalen Hyatt.
I don't even want to waste time
Another,
on him.
I know, I
He
know.
flashed.
Let's just go on with this.
Well,
Just
here, I will say
another,
one thing. I will say one thing. He flashed, but he's on the New York Giants, and that is all I have to say about Jalen Hyatt.
yeah. Well, I mean, I just have one stat to pull up.
Okay.
23 receptions through 17 games,
Hmm.
and I think he was a starter.
On and off. It wasn't until like in the middle of
Okay,
the
because I
season.
thought he was a starter for a majority of the season.
No, I think
But
they
I
worked
may
him
be
in.
wrong on that. Don't quote me. But still,
Let me see.
23 receptions through 17 games. Yeah,
Let's look
that's
at his
all I
snap.
got to say on it.
That's going to be the end all be all. It's his snap count.
Yeah, don't take too long on that. But yeah, I think
No,
that's
I got it
awful.
right here. So at the beginning of the season, 36%, 21%, 32%, 60%, 46%, and then 73, 71, 33, 59, 30, 53, 60, 64, 71, 56, 77, and 13. So yeah,
Hmm.
not great and kind of all over the place. So I think give him a pass. He does have a lot of talent. I would give him one more year on the taxi squad before dumping him, but
Yeah.
definitely disappointing.
I just don't I I don't like it. I really don't like it. Um so
The complete opposite.
yeah, on the way other end of the scale, this guy probably should have
Yeah.
been our our top or well, one of our top
Towards the top of
wide
tier.
receiving wide receiving talent.
Tank Dell.
Tank Dell.
Tank Dell.
Like
Love him. Love him a
amazing.
lot.
Amazing this year.
So good.
If he hadn't gotten hurt, he probably would have been maybe a
Again,
top
again,
10,
D'Amico Ryans.
top 7 wide
You will
receiver.
never watch this D'Amico Ryans. But if you ever, and I mean ever, put Tank Dell on inside run inside of the 5 yard line again, I will assault you. Stop it.
Oh my God.
He's 120 pounds
Don't
soaking
be
wet. You don't
don't
see
be making
Devontae Smith
threats. All
on an
right.
inside run in the red zone for the Eagles.
Man.
There's a reason for that, Ryan. Tank
Yep.
Dell showed you when he
Yep.
cracked his leg in half. All right, stop it. Gosh, I didn't think I'd
Okay.
say that, but don't do it.
I yeah. I I see with Tank Dell, obviously, ton of potential,
So
ton of
much,
skill.
especially with the connection he
I
has.
think yeah,
And
yeah.
he's shown stardom on
Mhm.
some of his catches and
He
route running.
has.
Like it's not just
Yeah.
he has one thing and the NFL just hasn't figured him out. Like he's fast, he can run good routes, he has good hands,
Yep.
he has good
Great hands.
spatial awareness.
Yep.
Like he's got everything you want in a receiver. I don't know if I can say that he's elite, that he'll be an elite receiver, but he's going to be a really good fantasy producer
Yeah.
for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. I I honestly I think he's gonna do really well. Like
Yeah.
in the very near future.
I'm hoping he
Um
crack gets into the top 18 this year, or top even top 15 in
I
that
think
tier
he
one
could be top
category.
I think he could be top 10.
He could
If
be.
both him and CJ stay healthy, or him, CJ, and Nico stay healthy,
Yeah.
and they get their run game going,
See ya.
it could be an interesting year.
Yeah.
It could really be an interesting year for them.
Depends on what they draft this
All
year.
right.
But
Yeah.
tier
Yeah,
three,
of course.
which I think all these receivers were pretty right on. You could argue one of these in here,
I
or
think
two of
two of
them.
them.
You could argue two of
I
them, yeah.
think two of them.
But the
I
rest, I
think
think
so. Let's go over.
we can kind
Let's
of
go over
breeze
this.
through. So we have Josh Downs, which I
Yeah.
think this is right
Go
where he
ahead.
belongs. I don't like his future going forward. He didn't
Hmm.
look good with Anthony Richardson. The only
Yeah.
people that looked good with Richardson was Zach Moss and Michael Pittman. So I wouldn't be holding my
Yeah.
breath if you drafted Josh Downs. Jonathan Mingo is a lull. Like he started to look better at the end of last year. I'm not gonna lie. He did start to look decent with Bryce at the
Yeah.
end of next year, but he has to score touchdowns. And the Panthers didn't score many of those.
Yeah. No.
So
None.
one that we were potentially wrong about, Ryan. Go ahead.
I I think we were totally wrong. Totally. Rasheed Rice. He ended
I
up
mean,
being wide receiver 27.
I
Okay, now this has a lot to do with the lack of skill. I guess the lack, yeah, I'd say the lack of skill on the Chiefs wide receiving core.
Mhm.
But I think Rasheed Rice shined, and I think he did really well. For a rookie, I can only imagine what another year with Mahomes is going to do for him.
Yeah, he could
But you know,
grow
he could turn
exponentially.
into something, and I would list him higher than what he's got now.
Yeah, I
Um,
put him towards the high end of tier two. I don't know about tier one yet, but
yeah, no, he's definitely not tier one. He's not like superstar right now. He could develop into that, but I don't know yet. Um, but I agree he should be a tier two ish. You know,
and
he
then
ended the year wide receiver 27, which was actually pretty good for a Chiefs wide receiver outside of Tyreek Hill. So,
let me go ahead and
um,
cover a few more, and then we'll talk about the last one. But A.T.
yeah,
Perry, not much to say. Showed some flashes
oh,
at the end of the year. Um, yeah, but he's on the Saints, so that's
yeah,
tough. Cedric Tillman, don't got to worry about him. Um,
Laughable.
Wide receiver 4, barely got any playing time.
Yeah.
Marvin Mims could be interesting, but he's got to work himself into that rotation. And same thing with Xavier Hutchinson. He's
Yeah.
also on the Saints, got to work himself into that rotation.
But they
Kind of
don't they yeah. I don't see a lot from them though. Like
fantasy
maybe
wise. Fantasy
if there's
wise.
extensive yeah. If there's extensive injuries on the wide receiving core, you could see them
Maybe.
emerge.
Yeah.
But that's it.
But the
Um
last one we were
the
wrong about.
last one, the last one, I love. I
Oh,
love his
big fan.
potential.
Big fan.
I love his potential. I hate the team that he's on,
Especially
but
on
I
a
love his
young
potential.
team.
Yeah, Jaden Reed, especially with Jordan Love there. I mean, crazy good. I really do think he could emerge as a wide receiver one.
Hmm.
I don't necessarily have the confidence in Christian Watson. I think he has a ton of skill. He can stretch the field for that
But
team
he needs to do better.
when he's healthy. But I just think Jaden Reed has it all. I think he can do what needs to be done on that Green Bay wide receiver core. So
Yeah.
especially with a very young team, they have Romeo Dobbs, they have Christian Watson, they have Jaden Reed. They're pretty stacked with wide receiver at this
Yeah.
point. So but I think Jaden Reed is a very good wide receiver for them. And I think fantasy wise, he could end up being Jordan Love continues to do Jordan Love things, which I hate as a
Yep.
Vikings fan.
We'll see. We'll
But
see what they can do.
he could end up being a top 20, I'd say, wide receiver next
But
year.
with that being said, let's review. So
Yep.
how I'm gonna go first on how I feel about the rookie list as a whole. I mean, obviously we missed
Oh,
on
no. We missed one. We
who?
missed one.
Who?
Who is the one rookie that came
No,
out of
that's
nowhere?
next. No, that's next. That's next on our review.
Okay, because I was just gonna say,
Yeah, that's on our how we
unranked.
feel. No, that's how we
Okay.
feel. That's how we feel on the list.
Okay. All right. All
So
right. All
how
right.
do
I
I
guess
feel about the
we'll do it
list
that
as a whole? Starting at the top, we missed out on CJ. We underrated him a little bit. Granted, we only did it a
way.
little bit because he was the top at the second tier, and we needed to see it. And we didn't know how we felt about the Texans
Yeah.
at the time. Obviously, we were a little wrong on that, but
Yeah.
he proved us, and we're here now. We're all about CJ around here.
Yeah.
After that, for me, Tank. I mean, loved him, loved him. I'm going to talk
Yeah.
about him more later, so I won't spend too much time there. I liked where we put him and where he ended. I think next year he's got a lot of potential.
Hmm.
Um, but the biggest thing, and then I'll talk about one more thing, is missing out on Puka. That is the
Yeah.
one thing, and also somebody else that we'll talk about in the next episode. But missing out on Puka, I think hurts. Obviously, no one saw that coming. Literally, no one saw that
Yeah.
coming. So I don't want to hear any crap about it. But yeah, yeah, I mean, there's not much else to say about it.
Wait.
He just came out of nowhere and said, "I'm going to be a top 10 wide receiver, and y'all can suck it. My name is
Listen. Listen. We fumbled the bag on that one. That was
everyone
everyone did
fumbled the
though.
bag
Like
on
nobody really knew. Josh will claim that he called it. He didn't call it. He had a hunch, and it ended up being right. But
yeah. Well, Joshua claimed that he's the greatest to ever
yeah.
play fantasy football, and he lost in the
Okay.
championship, so that
But
sucked.
you know, we were hearing rumors about Puka during the off season. And I
But
think we should
an
have taken heed
a
on
late
that. But
drafted guy to be your
yeah,
wide receiver one, like, come on, like that makes you think,
yeah,
oh man, like maybe I can flex this guy for a couple of games and he'll get me some
yeah,
points, and he might end up being something. Not, oh, this
yeah.
guy's going to be a top 10 wide receiver.
Well, yeah. I mean, you wanna hear a crazy stat.
Of
He
course.
ended up being wide receiver 4 at the end of the season. That for one is
Oh,
nuts.
sorry. Okay, a top 5 wide
That's
receiver.
nuts. But um crazy stat. How I just want you to guess how many targets did he get combined in the first 7 games?
First 7.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go 70.
82 targets in the
Jesus.
first 7 games. That
Jesus. That's
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 bonkers.
that's insane.
That's bonkers in the first 7 games, and that's it. That's
That's
nuts.
yeah, that is
So
insane.
I obviously think, Cup once Cup got back, he regressed back to, getting 7, 8, 9 targets on average per game. But I do think he'll regress a little this year, so I don't think he'll be a top 5 wide receiver if Cup stays healthy. But
But he's
I
still
think he's going to be pretty good.
yeah,
He's still going to be a top fantasy wide receiver just because Stafford throws to him all the time.
yeah.
So
My
yeah,
last thing is being too high on Bryce. So and I'm not gonna
way
take
too
a
high.
lot of heat for that because I was outvoted by you and Josh. I was higher on CJ,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
in terms of looking at the tier list we came up with as a group, we were too high on Bryce.
yeah. And you know what? I'll admit I was a little wary about Bryce, but I did it because I felt like he had the best. Uh, I felt like he had the best options,
Hmm.
and yeah, I I don't know. I just had a feeling about CJ, but I didn't go with it.
You were hooked
I
on him,
ended up, I know, I ended up going with Bryce. So
even when I
I
told you.
regret it. I regret it. I know I
I'm
messed
glad you
up.
regret
That's all
it.
right.
I'm glad it hurts.
But yeah. So who was your favorite rookie
I
to
mean,
watch this year?
do you even need to ask?
Out of this group.
So it's a tough choice. I put Tank Dell, but I can also argue Gibbs. The only reason why I went Dell over is I just had a lot of fun watching the Texans this year.
Yeah.
Because I also had Nico Collins in one of my other league.
Hmm.
So I was a big Texans fan this last season.
Yeah.
I was also a big Lions fan this season, but Gibbs didn't get played as much as I wanted. But when he was out there,
Yeah. Well,
he was
that's
making
for
a
the
look.
next episode.
Yeah.
We'll go over overalls. But
Yeah, so just for
yeah,
this
out of
episode,
this group.
rookies and wide receivers,
Yeah.
obviously Tank Dell. Next episode, yeah, you know
See,
what I'm going to talk about,
see,
but
that's funny because my favorite out of this group was CJ. Just watching him
yeah, he was
slice and dice
insane.
throughout the year,
He
he
was
wa-
insane.
he looked fantastic.
Yeah.
So, just seeing him out there, I loved it. I love seeing life on that Texans team.
Hmm.
We hadn't seen that in a couple of years,
Yep.
since Deshaun was there. So, yeah, it's nice to see somebody out there slicing and dicing again. Okay, so now that we've gone over last year's big board when it comes to wide receivers and quarterbacks,
Hmm.
let's redo our quarterback and wide receiver big board. So let's
So,
start with tier one. Let's go with tier one. Who
yeah.
are you putting it as the top? And I
I
think
mean,
I already know, obviously.
it's pretty
On
obvious.
on let's go with quarterbacks first. So who are you putting on
Just CJ.
as tier
Just
one?
CJ. It's easy.
Just CJ. That's it?
Yeah,
Okay.
and this is just redoing from last year. This isn't the future yet. So that's
Yeah.
why Anthony Richardson isn't there, but just redoing it, CJ.
Yeah. And I think CJ is up there for me. Um I Anthony Richardson is a close second, just because fantasy wise he uses his legs a lot, but uh, I want to put him in a tier two,
Yeah, it's just
like
not
a
enough
very
yet.
high tier two.
Now the future
But
is a different question, but
if
redo.
he shows out this year, definitely tier one. I
Yeah.
think he is definitely a tier one candidate. But I think the standalone guy that we've got in tier one is CJ
Yep.
Stroud.
And then the
Um,
wide receivers are clear already. Like I'm moving up
yeah,
Tank, Puka to tier
yeah.
one.
Puka, Tank. I would consider Jaden Reed. Maybe
I
no,
have him in
I
tier two,
wouldn't put.
but
I see. I would put Jaden Reed as a tier one, but a low tier one. He's on the threshold. Um,
and then
and then
obviously
moving
moving down
on,
to Tyson JSN.
yeah. Let's go down to tier two, high tier two for quarterback. Who do you have? I
Uh,
have mine,
just
Anthony
Richardson.
Richardson.
Yeah.
Okay, so just Richardson we have in tier two.
And
All
then
right.
it's the three.
Yeah, I'd say well tier two for me, Zay Flowers. I think low end tier two, JSN for me, very low tier
Yep.
two.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Um, and then Jordan Addison is kind of on that same level. Is I'd
Yeah, I
say
can agree with that.
low
Low
to
tier
mid
two,
tier two.
Jordan Addison.
Yeah. And then everyone else, Quentin Johnson, Jalen Hyatt, Josh Downs, Cedric, all of
Everyone
them
after.
tier three.
So
Like
let's talk the future.
they're a mixed tier
That
three.
that's the past. Now let's talk the future.
Yes.
So my year two superstars, I actually do have people from the same team, and that's going to be exactly what you're thinking of. It's
Yeah.
Tank
Yeah.
and CJ to the moon.
Yeah. See, I do think CJ is gonna do well. I mean, there's always that fear of a sophomore slump.
Yeah,
And
and that's
and
what
it
I'm thinking
doesn't
is
always
Addison.
happen. It doesn't
I have
always
Addison
happen.
for my
Yeah.
slum.
See, and I have Anthony Richardson as my year two superstar.
Yeah, no,
I
I
think he I think he pulls a Joe Burrow, or Joe Burrow was in for his first year, got injured, and then came back, and that was that same year that they went to the Super Bowl, right?
hmm
Yeah. I don't think they're going to make it all the way to the Super Bowl, but I do think he's going to carry that team. And I
yeah,
think fantasy wise, I think he is going
he's
to
going to
be
carry your
a
team.
top option. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think he is going to carry. Um,
Who you got?
sophomore slump. Yeah, who is your sophomore slump? Who do
Mine's
you think? You
Addison.
you think
Yeah,
Addison?
yeah, I'm going Addison. But that's also
Oh
dependent on the
man.
team changes.
See, I don't even know who is my sophomore slump because I see so much potential in all of these guys, and you don't want to see the worst of them. You don't want to see them go through that slump. I'm not gonna pick my sophomore slump because I don't know. I could just point my finger at any one of these guys and
All
pick
right.
them.
So what you're saying is
So,
Bryce Young, but you don't want to say it. That's okay.
oh no, Bryce Young. I think we've seen the worst. Honestly, I don't know how, unless he gets dropped, I don't know how he could do worse in fantasy.
Fair
I
enough.
really don't. So, like, this dude can only go up unless
Yeah.
he gets dropped like a stack of
Who,
potatoes. Okay,
who are you worried about?
so
Are you worried about anyone entering the draft? Mine is
as a
more
Vikings fan,
mine is more
as a Viking, I'm sorry.
go ahead, but mine is abstract. You'll have to walk down
Okay,
the
so
path of
I have two. Um, one of them is Jordan Addison.
hmm
Obviously, the Vikings could end up losing Kirk and bringing on a rookie quarterback, and that could end up being very bad for him. And my other one, Rishi Rice,
Interesting.
because he was the most skilled wide receiver on the Chiefs. But what if the Chiefs,
Go
who
out and
have
get
a already stellar young defense and had wide receiver troubles, what if they go out and get a star wide receiver this year? And then he's stuck being the second fiddle or third fiddle behind this star wide receiver, Travis Kelsey, and then it would be Rasheed Rice. So that is who I'm worried about, kind of. So yeah, it all depends on how the draft goes and free agency.
Yep.
But yeah. So
So mine
who
is ab
has
really
yours
quickly.
is abstract? Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mine is the
You got
Panthers
to do
not
you.
having a first round pick. There's a lot of good
Uh,
offensive talent, and so I'm worried about the Panthers offense. I guess you could say I'm worried about Bryce Young
yeah,
for that concept because they don't have a first round pick. How are you going to
yeah.
help an offense that's the worst in the NFL without your first round pick?
And And that goes back to what I was saying at the beginning of the podcast. It may take a couple of years for them to build a team around Bryce Young. And does he have that time to wait? Because, they don't have the best offensive line. And when you're out there playing football, you get hit a lot, especially when you don't have a great offensive line.
Yeah.
So it's it's going to be a rough go for him. I don't think he was put into the best situation, so it's going to be interesting.
Yeah,
So
Bushmu, the Panthers suck.
yeah,
Dude, I'm
so
jumping. I already mentioned this. I'm jumping off of Quentin. I'm jumping shift immediately off of Quentin Johnson.
yeah. See, I'm very hesitant with him. I'm keeping him on my taxi squad, and that's it. I'm making sure that he stays on my taxi squad. So
Yeah,
yeah. All right. Well, guys, I
that's
think
it.
that's it for
Yeah,
this.
we made
Yeah,
it.
for this week. Next week, we are going to be going over tight ends and running backs, and that's going to be a big one for running backs. We're going to have a lot to say on it.
And the
So,
tight end won.
I'm sorry.
And the tight end won.
Oh, yeah, and tight end one, exactly. So, thank you guys so much for watching and listening. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media and all at Last Place FP on Facebook, Twitter, or X, and Instagram. And be sure to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel and find us wherever you get your podcasts at Last Place Fantasy Podcast. Thank you.
Never
Ethan, go
forget.
ahead.
Never forget. Sometimes you are right.
Sometimes
Sometimes you
you're the
draft Quentin.
champion.
Sometimes you draft
Sometimes you're the
Quentin
champion.
Johnson, and you are.
The champion.
We'll
Suck
see you
it.
guys next time.